In a bustling city, where the streets pulsed with ambition and dreams often collided with harsh realities, Richard Gray stood as a towering figure of success. He was a businessman whose name resonated in boardrooms and cocktail parties, a man whose every whim was catered to by a world that adored his wealth and power. Yet, beneath the polished veneer of his life, Richard felt a profound emptiness gnawing at his soul, a chasm that wealth could not fill. The opulence that surrounded him became a gilded cage, trapping him in a life devoid of authenticity and genuine connection. Richard was acutely aware of the motivations that fueled the relationships around him. Friends were often mere acquaintances, drawn to the allure of his fortune rather than the essence of who he was. Women, beautiful and charming, flocked to him, but they were enamored with the man in the tailored suit, not the man behind the facade. As the days turned into weeks and weeks into years, Richard found himself increasingly disillusioned, plagued by the haunting question: was there anyone out there who would love him for the man he truly was? In a moment of clarity, Richard made a decision that would alter the course of his life. He sold his luxurious properties, relinquished his fleet of extravagant cars, and traded the glittering skyline for the simplicity of a small town, far removed from the superficiality of his past. He embraced a modest lifestyle, opting for a humble apartment and a job at a local coffee shop. Here, he hoped to shed the weight of his previous identity and discover the essence of who he was, unencumbered by the trappings of wealth. The coffee shop became a sanctuary for Richard, a place where he could interact with people on a level that transcended material concerns. It was there, amidst the comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee and the gentle hum of conversation, that he first laid eyes on Lila. She was a regular, a woman who entered the shop each morning with a warm smile and an easy laugh. Richard was struck by her authenticity. She seemed untouched by the allure of his past. Lila's kindness and humility were refreshing, and he found himself eagerly anticipating her daily visits. Their conversations began innocently, revolving around the weather, favorite books, and the little joys of life. Richard was captivated by Lila's perspective, her ability to find beauty in simplicity, and her genuine interest in the people around her. Unlike others, she never pried into his past or expressed curiosity about his former life. Instead, she treated him as an equal, a friend, and in doing so, she unknowingly began to heal the wounds that had festered within him. As the seasons changed, so did their friendship. They embarked on long walks through the town, shared laughter over meals at local diners, and engaged in deep conversations that stretched into the night. Richard felt a connection with Lila that he had never experienced before, a bond rooted in mutual respect and understanding. She saw him not as a businessman or a man of wealth, but as Richard, the kind-hearted man who listened, cared, and shared his dreams. Yet, as their relationship deepened, Richard grappled with a growing urgency, reveal the truth about his past. He knew that honesty was the foundation of any meaningful relationship, and he feared that the moment would come when he could no longer hide the man he once was. One evening, as they sat by a serene lake, the sun dipping below the horizon and painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Richard felt the weight of his secret pressing down on him. He took a deep breath, his heart racing, and shared his story. He spoke of his former life, the wealth, the power, and the emptiness that had driven him to abandon it all in search of something real. He watched Lila's expression closely as he spoke, searching for any sign of judgment or disappointment. But instead, he found compassion in her eyes. When he finished, she took a moment, her gaze steady and reassuring. "I didn't fall in love with your wealth, Richard," she said softly. "I fell in love with you, the man who cares deeply, who listens, who respects others. That's who I see." In that moment, a profound relief washed over him. The fear that had gripped him for weeks melted away, replaced by an overwhelming sense of acceptance. Lila loved him for who he was, not for the riches he had discarded. Their bond grew even stronger in the following weeks, fortified by their shared vulnerabilities and the trust they had cultivated. As time passed, Richard realized that he had found the love he had long sought. Lila was not just a partner, she was his confidant, his inspiration and his greatest supporter. Together they navigated life's challenges, celebrated each other's successes, and cherished the simple moments that made life beautiful. A year later, in a quaint garden surrounded by their closest friends and family, Richard and Lila exchanged vows. As they stood together under the warm sun, Richard felt a deep sense of gratitude. He had discovered that true wealth lay not in possessions or status, but in the connections we forge and the love we nurture. In Lila, he had found the genuine love he had always yearned for, a love that transcended the superficiality of his past and anchored him in a future filled with promise and joy. Richard Gray, once a man lost in the trappings of wealth, had finally found his way home, not to a place, but to a person who had shown him the true meaning of love.